Let me ask you a question. At what point in life do you think the human heart gives up on desire? Is there an age where the need for touch, for connection, for pleasure simply disappears? As a doctor with over 4 decades of experience sitting face to face with people in every stage of life, I can tell you, that day never truly comes. But with age comes change, and not all changes are easy to talk about. Today I want to speak with honesty, with care, with the quiet urgency of someone who has seen far too many people suffer in silence, believing they were alone in their questions. This conversation is about masturbation. Yes, that word many still hesitate to say out loud, even after living 6 or 7 decades on this earth. And more specifically, this is about what happens when men and women continue to masturbate into their later years, after 65, after 70, for some, even beyond 80. The truth is not as simple as good or bad, but there is something I need you to understand, something important. When I say that masturbation after 65 can cause something extremely harmful, I do not mean the act itself is inherently wrong or shameful, not at all. In fact, for many people, it remains a healthy part of self-awareness and emotional regulation. But here's the catch. It depends deeply on why and how it is done, and whether we are using it to nourish ourselves or to escape. What I have seen again and again in my practice are people, good people, turning to this act out of isolation, out of fear, out of a deep, aching loneliness that they do not know how to name. And when masturbation becomes a substitute for real human connection, when it becomes the only outlet for closeness and pleasure, then something begins to wither inside. The body may go through the motions, but the soul quietly starves. Let me explain what I mean in clearer terms. After the age of 65, the human nervous system becomes more sensitive to hormonal imbalances. Testosterone levels decline in men. Estrogen and progesterone remain low in women. This hormonal shift affects everything from bone density to mood regulation. When masturbation is practiced frequently, especially in the absence of emotional connection or without awareness of the body's deeper signals, it can further deplete already low levels of dopamine and serotonin. These are the very neurotransmitters we rely on to feel balanced, to feel motivated, to feel alive. A study published in the Journals of Gerontology found that older adults who engaged in sexual activity with emotional connection had better memory recall and improved executive function. But when sexual activity, including solo activity, was disconnected from meaning, the opposite was true. Increased rates of anxiety, reduced sleep quality, higher cortisol levels, and a slower recovery of the parasympathetic nervous system after arousal. This is not theory. These are clinical facts, and I have seen them unfold, slowly and painfully, in real lives. Now you might be wondering, does that mean we should just stop altogether? Give up on physical pleasure? That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is this: masturbation after 65 needs to be approached with care, with consciousness, with deep respect for the way the aging body responds. Because here's what doctors are finally beginning to admit. We have not done a good job helping people understand how sexual expression changes in the later years. We have either ignored it entirely or treated it like a joke. But this is no joke. Let me share a story. A man I once treated, 72 years old, widowed for 3 years. He came into my office with fatigue he could not explain, blood pressure erratic, insomnia getting worse, heart palpitations. He feared he was on the verge of a heart attack. After weeks of tests, scans, and no obvious cause, we sat down. Really sat down. I asked him to walk me through his daily rhythms. What gave him comfort? What gave him stress? That's when he broke down and told me the truth. Every night after the loneliness of the day had pressed down on him, he would masturbate, sometimes twice, just to help him fall asleep. He told me it was the only time he felt alive, but afterward he would lie there in the dark, feeling empty, sometimes ashamed, and more tired than before. What this man was experiencing was not just emotional despair, it was also physiological exhaustion. His body, already working hard to regulate aging systems, was being pushed past its limits by an activity that, when misused, can stimulate the sympathetic nervous system excessively. He was constantly spiking adrenaline and cortisol. Over time, that constant stimulation leads to fatigue, heart strain, and even worsening immune function. We work together to restore balance, to help him reconnect with others, to find emotional intimacy through conversation, companionship, even group activities. And we reshaped his relationship with his body. It took time, but slowly he began to heal. Not just physically, spiritually. There is also the issue of addiction. Yes, even in older adults. A study from the Journal of Behavioral Addictions reported that individuals over 65 are not immune to compulsive sexual behavior, especially those with histories of trauma, abandonment, or long-term isolation. The brain does not stop responding to patterns just because we age. Neural pathways built over years can become deeply entrenched. And when masturbation is used as a coping mechanism for emotional pain, the body learns to rely on it like a drug. But unlike substances, this is a behavior that hides in silence, rarely talked about, often dismissed, and yet it can hijack the brain's reward system in the same way. I want to say this clearly. The harm I am warning about is not in the act. It is in the isolation of the act, in the frequency, the intention, and the hidden emotional cost when it becomes a replacement for healing. When we masturbate to avoid grief instead of move through it. When we use it to numb fear instead of seek understanding. That is when it becomes a quiet threat, one that steals vitality instead of restoring it. For women, the risks are just as real, though less often discussed. Vaginal atrophy, thinning of the tissues, and reduced natural lubrication can make the act painful or lead to micro tears if not done with awareness. Postmenopausal changes in estrogen levels mean the tissues are more fragile, and without proper hydration, warming up, or even hormone support, what once brought release can now bring discomfort or even urinary tract infections. It is not something to be feared, but it is something to be respected. The body speaks. We just need to listen. I am not here to shame. I am here to protect, to remind you of your dignity, your worth, your right to pleasure that is life-affirming, not draining, your right to ask questions that others are too afraid to answer. Let me leave you with something I have come to believe after all these years. The body is not a machine. It is a living, breathing symphony. In youth, the music is loud, the rhythms wild, but in age, the music grows softer, more deliberate. It asks to be listened to with care. Masturbation, when practiced with reverence, with attention, can still be a beautiful part of that music. But when it is done without awareness, it becomes noise, disruption, sometimes even danger. So if you are over 65, if you have found yourself wondering whether your habits are helping or hurting, if you feel tired, number disconnected after, please do not ignore that voice inside. Speak to someone, a doctor, a therapist, a trusted friend. You are not alone. You are not broken. But your body is asking for something deeper than release. It is asking for restoration. What steps can I take right now to heal my relationship with my body? Let me begin by telling you something that may feel hard to believe. No matter how long you have lived, no matter what your body has been through, no matter what it looks like, moves like, or feels like today, you can still come home to it. You can still build a relationship with your body that is rooted in kindness, patience, and trust. And you can begin that process right now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more motivated, not when you lose weight or when the pain goes away, but right now, in this very moment. For many people, especially those past the age of 65, the relationship with the body begins to change, slowly, quietly, sometimes without even noticing. The same hands that once moved with ease begin to tremble. The back that once stood tall may curve. The mirror shows someone that feels unfamiliar. And over time, many begin to treat their own bodies like a burden. Something to manage, something to tolerate, but not something to love. And that creates a quiet wound, a kind of grief, because inside every older adult is a memory of who they once were. And when the present body no longer matches that memory, a quiet sadness can take root. But I am here to tell you, you do not have to stay in that space. Healing your relationship with your body is not about going back. It is about moving forward with truth and care. The very first step is to listen. Most people spend years trying to control their body, fix it, force it to feel different. But what if, instead, you began to ask it gentle questions? How are you feeling today? What do you need? What hurts? What feels good? In a study published in the Journal of Aging and Health, researchers found that older adults who practiced daily body awareness exercises reported improved emotional well-being and reduced chronic pain symptoms, simply by paying attention, by noticing, by softening the way they spoke to their own physical self. You do not need complicated routines. You do not need expensive tools. Start with the breath. Sit quietly. Place one hand on your chest, the other on your stomach. Breathe in slowly, then breathe out. That is your body speaking, still alive, still present, still yours. And in that breath, you will find something sacred, a reminder that your body is not a problem to solve. It is a partner in your life, even now, even after all the surgeries, the weight gain, the medications, the fatigue. It is still yours, and it has never stopped trying to carry you through this world. The second step is to touch without judgment. I have met so many older adults who have not looked at themselves in the mirror for years, or who flinch when they feel their own skin. They speak about themselves with cruelty, words they would never use on anyone else, and yet they say them to the very body that has fought for them every day of their life. That needs to change. Research from the International Journal of Behavioral Medicine found that seniors who practiced self-massage and gentle skin stimulation had lower cortisol levels, better circulation, and improved mood. Not because of the touch alone, but because of the intentionality behind it. Take a moment each day to apply lotion, not as a chore, but as an act of kindness. Touch your arms, your legs, your feet. Not to criticize, but to care. Speak kindly as you do. Say things like, "You've carried me for so long. Thank you." It may feel strange at first, but over time, you will begin to believe it, because it is true. Another step, and this is a hard one, is to release the belief that worth is tied to youth or appearance. I say this as someone who has watched people age with grace and others age with grief. The difference was never in their wrinkles. It was in their acceptance. A large longitudinal study from the National Institute on Aging found that older adults who viewed aging as a natural, even meaningful process experienced lower rates of depression, better memory retention, and longer life expectancy. They were not trying to erase the years. They were trying to honor them. That begins with how you speak to yourself. When you see your reflection, look with curiosity, not critique. That face has seen love, loss, laughter. That body has held children, carried groceries, climbed stairs, felt pain, felt joy. It is not broken, it is weathered. And weathered things are not weak. They are strong. They have survived. You can also support your healing by moving gently every day. Movement does not mean exercise in the traditional sense. It means reconnecting with your body in a way that feels nourishing, a short walk, stretching while listening to music, slow dancing in the living room. In a study from Frontiers in Psychology, movement therapy in older adults was shown to improve not only physical mobility, but also body image, emotional health, and sense of identity. Because moving the body reminds us that we are still here, still capable of sensation, of joy, of presence. Let me also say this. Healing your relationship with your body does not mean pretending everything is perfect. There will be pain, there may be limitations, and some days frustration will rise up like a wave. That is okay. Healing does not mean you never feel sadness. It means you do not abandon yourself when the sadness comes. It means you learn to sit beside your discomfort with compassion instead of shame. You may be someone who has spent years disconnected from your body, or perhaps you were raised to believe that the body was something to control, not something to feel. Those beliefs take time to unlearn. But it is never too late to start. I have seen 90-year-olds begin a journey of self-acceptance. I have seen 80-year-olds learn to look at themselves without flinching. I have seen 70-year-olds cry after realizing for the first time that they were allowed to feel proud of the skin they are in. You can begin this process right now. You can sit quietly, breathe, touch your hand, Thank your knees. Feel the beat of your own heart. These are not small things. These are sacred things, and over time, they will reshape how you experience the world. Do not wait for someone else to give you permission. You are the one you have been waiting for. You are the caretaker of this body. No one else knows its stories like you do. No one else knows its scars, its quiet victories, its daily courage. Your relationship with your body is the longest relationship you will ever have. Begin again today, with tenderness, with truth, with the quiet knowing that healing is not a destination, it is a practice. One breath, one touch, one gentle word at a time.